The reputation of killer whales can be called intimidating. Smart, predatory, fast marine killers. They can sink boats and attack ships just because they want to. But despite all this, killer whales almost never attack humans in the wild. Moreover, all reports of violent interactions between killer whales and humans are accompanied by serious reservations. And yes, when a killer whale attacks a boat with people, it does not attack people, but the boat itself. Killer whales have been meeting people in the ocean for centuries. But despite the fact that we are not the most peaceful neighbors, for some reason killer whales do not attack. And this is, at least, strange. To understand why they don't attack people, you first need to remember to like them. How do you like the unobtrusive request? Don't forget, please. If you trace the ocean's food chain from bottom to top, each time it ends with a killer whale. Even white sharks experience animal fear at the sight of killer whales and leave the area where they appear. But at the same time, we consider killer whales cute because they don't attack us. Yes, they attack boats, but only boats the crew of killer whales is not interested. Moreover, there are areas in the world where people often find themselves in the water with killer whales, and even then they do not attack, although humans are noticeably more defenseless compared to the same white sharks, and killer whales have plenty of opportunities to use this. Why don't killer whales do that? Most likely, scientists will never find a complete and definitive answer, some kind of absolute truth. Just think about it. We are dealing with intelligent animals that carry generations of their own culture, and yet we are not able to communicate with them at all. We can only speculate, and experts have several theories about non-aggression, and there is enough logic in all of them. One of them boils down to the fact that killer whales are just very picky about food. Moreover, they are also conservative. Each pack has its own preferences, which the animals adhere to. Anything that is not on their regular menu is not considered food, including people. Young individuals adopt eating habits from their mothers and strictly follow them because killer whales actually respect their traditions very much, no matter how strange it may sound in relation to animals. For example, in the eastern Canadian Arctic, half of the killer whales feed mainly on beluga whales and narwhals, and the other half mainly on ringed seals. In Greenland, killer whales eat all available prey, while in Iceland, the Faroe Islands, and most killer whales eat herring. But a small number of killer whales in Norway and Iceland also consume a significant portion of marine mammals, such as porpoises and seals. Although all killer whales are considered one species, they can be distinguished by physical characteristics such as fin shape, spot size, and behavior and diet. In some cases, killer whales that feed only on fish play with marine mammals and kill them, but do not eat them, even when the group is starving. The main explanation for why they do this is the cultural taboo against eating marine mammals. It is possible that this prohibition applies to humans as well. If it's all about culture, people stay off the menu just because they've never been on it before, and it's in our best interest to keep it that way. Dolphins are a good example of a ban within a group. Killer whales are the only predators that regularly kill and devour Pacific white-sided dolphins off the coasts of British Columbia and Washington, so scientists were seriously surprised when they saw how these dolphins were playing right next to a group of killer whales, and they did not even try to kill them. It was only later that scientists realized that this group of killer whales had sailed from the south and were following a diet without mammals. How exactly dolphins were able to guess that killer whales do not pose a danger to them is a mystery. Perhaps it was a desperate act of bravery. But don't forget that killer whales are known for their ability to adapt, so if they suddenly want to break their taboos and start hunting us, they will do it easily. In addition, killer whales can actually kill marine animals for the sake of training or even playing. Why they don't view humans as a tool for such violent games is unknown. Some experts suggest the following. Killer whales think that humans are some kind of strange thing, and certainly not food, not something to worry about or even something to pay attention to. Other experts believe that killer whales have a fairly universal rule in the wild. Don't attack people. The reason is likely to be both biological and cultural. Killer whales have been around for about 11 million years, and humans are a relatively new species on the planet compared to them. We are physically no match for these top predators, but they obviously found us worthy of coexistence. Well, thank you very much. Another explanation could be that we just aren't tasty enough to be included in the killer whale menu. Yes, they're damn finicky. Imagine a 3-year-old child who has begun to defend his boundaries and now eats only one specific dish from a specific plate. Killer whales are on the same level. For example, they eat only the fattest Chinook. They don't care if a whole flock of other fish swim by. Even individuals with a more diverse diet are very selective. In one case, they killed a gray whale, but ate only its tongue. It's not clear, though, how they knew what we tasted like if they'd never tasted it. Maybe the sharks told them? Another possible reason why killer whales don't eat us is that we don't look like any of the food sources that killer whales usually depend on. Compared to marine mammals and delicious fresh fish, it's like we have nothing to offer killer whales. When scientists examined the diet of killer whales, they found out that they mostly eat fish. Only 10 to 17% prefer marine mammals. This means that for a significant percentage of killer whales, we don't even remotely resemble something edible. That is, you can, of course, confuse a human and a Navy SEAL. But we obviously don't look like salmon. And all these killer whales that prefer fish will not be able to switch to humans, even if they decide to change their diet. Their own teeth won't allow it. They're too small and not designed for hunting mammals. And the jaws are arranged differently. The teeth of killer whales that prey on mammals are designed to grab and tear apart prey. In short, fish-eating killer whales are physically unable to eat us unless they evolve specifically. But we also have a whole bunch of bones. Maybe it's too much for killer whales too. Well, let's figure it out. The skeleton of an average adult weighs 10 to 11 kilos. When hunting, killer whales do not chew food, tear it into pieces, or swallow it whole, along with bones and everything else. And considering that the weight of killer whales can exceed 6 tons, 10 kilograms of bones are unlikely to be a problem for them. So it's not about bones at all, it's about nutrition. Killer whales need to eat 170,000 calories every day. That's about how many calories 85 people eat every day. Yes, that's how voracious they are, and that's okay considering the size. At the same time, it was scientists, not Hannibal Lecter, who read that one person contains about 126,000 calories. And what happens? We have already found out that most killer whales follow a strict diet. That is, if a group suddenly started eating people, it would only be interested in people. Fish and marine animals would no longer be on the menu. At the same time, one adult killer whale needs to eat at least one person a day, ideally 2, in order to survive. It depends, of course, on the calorie content of a particular person. And killer whales rarely live alone. Most often these are groups of 5 to 30 individuals, but sometimes they gather in groups of 50 or even more. It turns out that such a group would have to eat from 9 to 50 people every day. It's just unrealistic to find so many people to feed, especially in colder climates, where people are in no hurry to get into the water and become prey. Take the same sharks. They kill about 10 people a year, which is about 0.02 people a day, because it just doesn't work anymore. And although killer whales live almost all over the world, they are rarely found where many people live. It turns out that a diet of humans has no logical meaning, and a killer whale that decides to switch to it is doomed to death. And by the way, that's the number, 950 people a day, according to the most conservative estimates. Other scientists have estimated that adult females weighing about 2 tons will need more than 190,000 calories per day. A male weighing 4.5 tons will need 290,000 calories per day. And in humans, let me remind you, there are only about 126,000 calories compared to the usual prey of killer whales. This is just nonsense. For example, killer whales like to rip out the liver from sharks and eat only the liver, ignoring the rest of the shark. When the liver is eaten, the killer whales simply swim away, leaving the body to other marine life. This is because the liver is the most nutritious thing in a shark, and killer whales strive to make each of their hunts as nutritious as possible. Yes, that there is a liver, someone will surely say. It's not that big compared to a whole shark, and this is basically true in terms of size. But the same liver of a great white shark can contain up to 2 million calories. 2 million! Against this background, people lose slightly, as in general and against the background of the rest of the killer whale prey. Let's take salmon. On average, a killer whale eats 227 kilograms of salmon every day. 15 pieces are usually eaten at a time, and one whole fish contains 1,500 calories, which comes out to 22,500 calories at a time, which is only 1/6 of a person. And again, it feels like it's easier to catch salmon than humans, not to mention other mammals that killer whales feed on. They're all bigger than humans, much bigger, and fatter because they swim in cold water. Porpoises weigh up to 220 kilos, dolphins weigh from 80 kilos, and here it is more or less possible to compete with humans. And there are individuals of 235 kilos. There is no chance. It looks like the story with seals, where the lower bar starts at 55 kilos, but the upper one is already 168 kilos, and they are more nutritious anyway. Not to mention larger prey like whales. A newborn sperm whale can weigh 1 ton, and a newborn blue whale 2.2 to 2.7 tons. Oh, and don't forget that it takes time and energy to find prey and hunt. And prey is needed daily, so killer whales try to choose something bigger. For example, one carcass of a gray whale can feed 17 killer whales. Yes, it takes a lot of effort to kill a whale, but it's still faster and easier than finding and eating 30 people. At least the whales are already at sea. But it doesn't end with calories either. Scientists have found that in the process of evolution, cetaceans have lost the ability to feel 4 of the 5 basic tastes. They do not understand whether food is bitter or sweet or maybe sour. All that cetaceans feel is the salinity of food, and this salinity should be at a satisfactory level. A person weighing 50 kilos will contain about 200 grams of sodium chloride, about 40 teaspoons. If you remember that a killer whale needs to eat 1.5 to 2 people, it turns out that it will receive about 400 grams of sodium chloride daily. And what about the usual food of killer whales? There are approximately 1,100 milligrams of sodium in 1 kilogram of seal meat. On average, seals weigh 70 kilos, which means that one individual contains 77 grams of sodium chloride. Now compare the salt content in humans and in seals. Perhaps killer whales just understand that we are too salty for them, because you don't even need to chew for this. After all, people sweat, secrete salt, and killer whales are smart guys. And let's all rejoice at this, because if they wanted to switch to a human diet, despite all the problems, whatever we do, it's simply unrealistic to fight back against the killer whale in the water. A simple example. When, on June 13, 2022, the trainer violated safety rules and ran her hand over the paste of the killer whale she was working with, the killer whale bit the woman. And although the killer whale immediately released the trainer, she needed immediate medical attention. She suffered multiple fractures of her forearm and wrist from one bite. Although it was a killer whale weighing only 2.5 tons, it's not that big. Now imagine a really big killer whale in the water, and this killer whale decides to attack a human, not to bite him, but to eat him. Such a meeting is simply impossible to survive. Death will be quick and inevitable. There may be some ways to counter such attacks, but to figure them out, you need the killer whales to start attacking. Theory is built in practice. For example, a resident of Kauai Island fought off a shark by thrusting his fingers into its nostrils. It could be with a killer whale, it's hard to say. If only they could reach the blowholes which replace the nostrils located at the top of their heads. Or maybe killer whales are too smart to be able to resist them so easily. There is a lot of speculation here, because there have never been any special attacks. Killer whales only attack boats. And here, of course, people have already thought of something. There are many ways, from pouring sand or pouring some liquid overboard, to loud noise, including specially selected playlists. It helps every other time. So let's hope that the killer whales will never think to change their menu and include a human in it. Most likely, this will lead to sacrifices on our part and to extinction on theirs.